So you've learned about differentiation and you understand the importance of this concept. This section will discuss the next tool to go into your toolbox, and it's a concept so simple that most sales reps dismiss it as unimportant. Well, not only is it important, but it's the key that opens the door to the rest of the call. If you don't have a key, the door might remain closed forever. Don't disregard one of the most basic tenets of a good sales call: introductions. Ready to get your first advantage over those other sales reps? Let's get to it. The third module, Lesson 1, First Impressions.
First impressions. What am I going to do to create the right impression? Okay, everybody forms an impression when they meet somebody new or work with a new company or whatever. What we don't have any control over, though, is when someone forms that first impression. You know, we like to think that the very first time we say, "Hi, how are you?" and introduce yourself to them, that they're forming the impression. And what actually may happen is they could have formed the impression long before that. They could have seen you somewhere or seen you come through the door, and they've already got an impression in mind. It could be that your introduction is so poor and so unmemorable that they don't form an impression at all. And so we're going to help you with that introduction and make sure that it's really on point and it does make a difference. But let's start with appearance. You should be the best dressed rep in the accounts you call on. Okay, think about that. When you go into your accounts and you look around and you notice other salespeople, who are the best dressed? And then I would dress to that level. Okay, you can always be overdressed and not cause anybody to feel like that you're not, giving them the importance that they're due. But if you're underdressed, you can totally submarine everything you're talking about. Pharma reps. Now, I get this pushback sometimes from hospice salespeople. I say, well, but Mike, if I dress like a pharma rep, I might get, mistaken for a pharmaceutical rep. Oh, now, would that be a bad thing? What's going to happen? Oh, go on back, which is what they typically say to the pharma reps? Not so bad. But better that you get to explain what it is that you do. If someone says, which pharmaceutical company are you with? That gives you a whole opportunity to set yourself apart and, again, give them your hospice story. But we believe in being very professionally dressed. Now, your company probably has policies, and you need to adhere to those policies, but we're going to tell you that you should dress as nicely as possible. Learn from some of those people that do a good job with that. The pharmaceutical companies have invested a lot of money, time, energy in developing their programs, and what did they come up with? For men and women, it's navy blue, black or gray, suits, white or light colored shirts, an appropriate tie. Okay? It's not hard to do. It's not hard to look as professional or more professional than the other people that are calling on them. But that's going to be your first thing to do. And then the next is really looking at how are you going to put it all together? And do you look successful? Because people build that first impression of your level of competency based on how you look. If you look like, you're not successful at what you do, they're not going to form that impression and think, wow, this hospice person is really serious. They are at the top of the game. So, at a minimum, dress better than your competitors. But we believe you should dress as well as or better than everybody that calls on your accounts and in your community. Different communities, different things are going to be typical, but definitely would not run around on Fridays and tell them it's casual Friday and that's why you got the jeans on with the holes in them. That's never going to work for you. How do you use your marketing materials? We talked in the organizational section about keeping them clean and organized and have them ready, but how are we going to use them to create that first impression? If I spend all of my time going around saying, hi, I brought you a brochure, and handing them the brochure out of the box, I'm not creating much of an impression. In fact, you're going to divert their attention to a printed piece of material which, let's be candid about it, doesn't sell anything. Do we all have to have brochures? You bet. But is a brochure going to sell anything? not unless you make the right impression and get them to understand why you and your company are going to make a difference. So when you use your marketing materials, use them sparingly, use them strategically, and never lead with your brochure. Okay? Have your business cards at the ready. If you don't have them at the ready in your pocket, there's nothing worse than fumbling all around looking for your business cards and, well, I got to get my purse or I got to get my wallet out, and you're pulling out a dog-eared business card from the back of your wallet to give somebody. Absolutely, positively going to be the wrong impression to make. Now, you may be listening to it and thinking, well, yeah, of course, Mike, duh. But in fact, we see it all the time. And if you think about it, you've probably been guilty of it. So plan ahead and make sure that you've got your business cards, you've got the appropriate marketing materials, and you're dressed for success. We talked about having your car being organized. It should also be clean. Now in the winter months, and certainly in areas where there's a lot of snow and ice and salt on the roads and everything else, it's tough. But you need to make an effort to keep your car clean so that on the outside it looks like it reflects you and your image that you're trying to portray. So make sure that your car is clean. One of the things that's kind of handy is that, and you'll see some of the pharmaceutical reps have, is a dirt skirt, which is an item that goes in the trunk and Velcros in. And when you go to get stuff out of the trunk of the car, you flip it over the back bumper so you don't end up getting all that road grime or whatever on your pants or your skirt. So think about that. Think about keeping your car really clean and ready to go. Being prepared is always going to make a good first impression. Know where you're going. If I'm going into a hospital, what do I expect to encounter? What type of people might I run into in the elevator? What type of people might I run into as I'm going around and meeting with the case manager or the patient and family, whatever my purpose for being there is? You're going to run into physicians. You're going to run into those you know, those you don't know. You're going to run into case managers and others that you need to be prepared. So mentally think about, what type of people might I talk to? If it's a hospital that you know a lot of people in, think about, what's my strategy for any of those people? Because you may be going to see Bob on the 7th floor or 7 West, but you run into Mary in the elevator. And Mary, you were going to call on a different day, but you're not prepared, and so you miss the opportunity, and you talk about the weather with Mary. So always think through all the possibilities and be prepared for making that call. Another thing to know is, what's my backup plan? When we talk about pre-call planning later in these modules, you'll find that we're going to talk about having a secondary plan in mind. Part of being prepared is really thinking through what are the possibilities and then getting prepared for it. Do your homework. If it's something where you're going somewhere that's going to be an important potential referral partner and there's homework to be done, do the homework before you go. Know that you've got a clear goal for each and every call. The worst thing that we can do, and especially as we're trying to build a new relationship, which is a series of impressions, a series of interactions that's going to build that relationship so that they feel comfortable and trust us enough to entrust one of their patients for us for hospice care. You've got to be ready and have a goal for every call. Never should you walk through a doorway without a clear goal for that call in mind and a secondary fallback position in case the person that you were going to call on for your primary goal is not available or not really in the right frame of mind to talk to you about what you're there for. Have your questions prepared. As we go through probing and interviewing and that important part of your job in discovering their needs, we're going to talk about developing those questions that you're going to use. You're going to develop questions that are going to work in certain settings with certain type of specialists, certain type of disease processes that you'll use over and over again. You may have them, you may want to put them on a check sheet or on a laminated card or keep them in a workbook or something. But be prepared to that degree. If I'm going into the hospital and I'm trying to talk to somebody about our CHF program, which is going to keep their end-stage patients from bouncing back and forth from hospital, home, which is where we can build a real relationship with those hospitals and bring a value add to them, keeping them out of the out of the hospital, have my questions in mind. Be prepared to ask those questions that are going to lead them to talk to you about the problems and challenges they have managing those CHF patients. Know what their possible answers are. If I'm going to ask a question, I should know what the possible answers are. Think through it so I ask the question properly and don't ask a question that's got some, negative answers that are going to take you into a dead end. And then know what the objections may be and be prepared. We'll talk in depth about how to handle objections later on in this course, but that's one of the pieces of being prepared and one of the ways that you're going to set yourself apart. If your competitors have that deer in the headlight look when somebody hits them with, oh, we already have a hospice we use, does that form the right impression? You've got to be ready to handle it and have them not even realize that you had that conversation. So be prepared with everything to do with it. And I guess, at the end of the day, your attitude's going to be driven by whether or not you've got doubts. If you've got doubts about whether your agency can provide the services, you better eliminate them. If you've got doubts about that, somehow you think, well, they're never going to use us, but I got to go in here for whatever reason, guess what? You're going to prove yourself right. So eliminate those doubts. Have the confidence in yourself and your ability to represent your hospice and the hospice program and the services and the magic that your people have in the community, and know that you're the best person to be out there as the face of your hospice organization. And that all comes from confidence, from that positive self-image, from knowing absolutely positively that you're the right person. And again, as I said earlier on, let your passion come through. Let it shine. Problems. We're talking about setting ourselves apart, creating good impressions. Good problem solving skills are going to be critical. You've got to be excellent at solving problems. If you're not, you're going to miss a lot of business and you're going to create the wrong impression. I can guarantee you one thing. If you're brand new to this job and nobody's told you this, we can guarantee you one thing in life. There will be problems. And it's not a reflection of your agency or the quality of the program. It's really the nature of our business. There's 1,000 moving parts, and they're all people. We're working with families and patients who are not at their best by definition. It's all a recipe for unmet expectations, misunderstandings, and other types of problems. So you've got to be really good at solving those problems and looking at adversity and problems as being an opportunity. Okay? What we know about problems and problem solving is that the strongest relationships are between a customer and a company where there's been a problem and it was resolved to the customer's complete and total satisfaction. Now, we're not telling you to go out and create problems just so you can solve them and have a better relationship, but you better be really good at it. And again, that's going to set yourself apart in the mind of the potential referral partners. And the last thought I would leave you on in setting impressions is just remember you're a winner. You are the best at what you do. You represent an incredible hospice organization, and always know why you're there, what you're doing, and sell from a position of strength because you can make a difference.
Lesson 2, sell benefits, not features.
Okay, so we're finally ready to talk about one of those tools in your toolbox, introducing yourself. And we've said that introductions are so very important. But the other thing we said was that you've got to stay true to who you are. You've got to be yourself. And that's why we can't just script it and give it to you and have everybody we train go out and introduce themselves the exact same way. Because each one of you are different, and each one of your organizations are different, and each one of the markets that you sell to are different. So what we're going to give you is the process and the reason and rationale behind it. And what you're going to have to do is develop that introduction that's going to be your personal introduction that's consistent with who you are and your company. So always stay true to your personality. When we're talking about introducing ourselves, there's really 4 ways to do it. The first way is I can just come up and tell them hi, I'm Mike Ferris with Angel's Wing Hospice. Okay, I'm just telling them who I am. Is that effective? No, it's not. It's better than just telling them your name, but again, you haven't given them any benefit, you haven't given them any reason to remember you differently than any other hospice person or have a reason to have a further conversation with you. The second way to do it is you add in your title or your function. So I'm Mike Ferris with Angel Wings Hospice, and I'm your community liaison. Now again, not an effective introduction. However, it's what we hear people do on a daily basis. And of course, we hear variations of that which are also ineffective, such as, hi, I'm Mike with Angel's Wing, I'm your community liaison. So I didn't give my last name, and I didn't tell them that we were a hospice program. So again, it's not effective, and you can get real ineffective with it if you start getting casual with the process. And I'll bet a lot of you are stopping and thinking, gosh, you know what? That's the way I do it. And that's why we're talking to you today about the importance of introductions. So the last two ways that you can introduce yourself are both going to be effective ways to do it. One of them, the first one, is going to be you introducing yourself and your agency and giving them a benefit statement. Okay, what's in it for them? So an example might be, hi, I'm Mike Ferris with Angel's Wing Hospice. We work with physicians to manage end-of-life patients and keep their phone from ringing. Okay, I've given them something we do and a benefit to them. Now the fourth way is truly going to be your most impactful, and that is introducing yourself, letting them know who you represent, and letting them know what it is you do for them, and then engaging them with a question or a statement to have a further conversation. So it might go something like this. Hi, I'm Mike Ferris with Angel's Wing Hospice. We work with physicians who are managing patients with uncontrollable pain at end of life. We're eliminating the phone calls and the stress on the physician and their staff, and wanted to find out what frustrations and challenges you have managing those patients with uncontrollable pain in your practice. Now, do you see how that walked them through the fact that we've got a real benefit to them? What do we know about a lot of times the problems for the patient, for the physicians managing those patients? And if they're uncontrollable pain patients, they're going to be a lot of work, a lot of phone calls, a lot of stress, a lot of problems for the family, the patient, and the physician and their staff. So if I can paint the picture that we're here to help you, I'm here to make your job easier in my introduction, then I've set myself apart. Can you see how that would make a difference versus somebody just coming in and giving them their name and their label? So what you're going to need to do, your homework assignment, is to really sit down and craft your introduction and be able to put in there a benefit to the person you're talking to and some type of question to engage them to have a further conversation. So we'll talk about, what those things are and how you can customize your introduction for each possible scenario. You're going to want to have introductions that you use with specialists. You're going to want to have introductions you use with facilities, in hospitals, with discharge planners versus with the administration. And again, it all comes back to knowing your audience, really knowing at the end of the day why they should talk further with you. Because that's what we're trying to get to. If I can introduce myself in a way that catches their attention, that sets myself apart, and it sets me apart in a manner that says, wow, if you could do that, yeah, you bet I'd have an interest. So that's your goal, is create that introduction that's powerful, that tells them who you are, who you represent, and why they should talk to you further, why they should take time out of their busy day to find out what you're about. So create that powerful hook, and you will see a tremendous increase in the number of times you're able to get further appointments and have further conversations with people that you've just met. We just talked about in introductions how we need to talk about benefits to the person you're introducing yourself to. So let's talk a little bit about benefits and the difference between a feature and a benefit. We're going to tell you throughout all of this training that you need to be focused on talking in terms of benefits. Everybody's favorite radio station is WIIFM. What's in it for me? And so you've got to remember that when we go out in the community and have these conversations, it's about them, not about us. Features, when we talk about features, we're talking about us. When we talk about benefits, we're talking about them. So that's a fundamental thing you need to keep in mind in crafting all of your sales conversations, strategies, interactions, questions, everything you do, is you want to have them laden with benefits. So let's talk about that. If we talk about a hospice program that has a music therapy program, for example, if I say we have a music therapy program, that's a feature. If I explain that our music therapy program has proven to enable us to better manage pain for patients with less medication, enabling the family and the patient to have a higher quality of life, I've now given them a benefit. Do you see how that's much stronger and more powerful to be able to talk about what's in it for them? Why a music therapy program is important? So think about, and sometimes it's good to take yourself out of our industry and think outside into another arena. And think about other types of sales and kind of what works there. And I think one that's really good to use as an example when we're talking about features and benefits is selling a car. Now, I don't know about you, but I personally just detest the whole idea of having to go buy a car and deal with car salespeople. I think they probably get a bad rap, but you know, what the heck? It's the rap that they've developed, and some of them deserve it. But think about the really good car salespeople. So here's what I want you to do. Mentally think about that today, when you get done with your day after your last sales call, you have to go buy a car. No, I know that sounds kind of silly, but just play along here. You have to go buy a car today. No matter how tired you are, what you got to do, picking up the kids, making the dinner, whatever, you got to go buy a car. So you go to the dealership for the brand, whatever it is that you think you might want, and you walk in. First salesperson comes over and says, "Hi, I see you're looking at our new model here, and of course it's a beautiful red car. You know, it's got great safety features. It has, you know, a collapsible steering wheel. It has, you know, an entertainment center, a GPS. It has 4 tires. It has gears. It has a trunk." You get the idea. He's going down and giving you a list of features. Sound familiar maybe? Again, we're getting outside of our arena. You've probably had those car salesmen that tried to give you a whole list of features. Again, it's about them and not about you. But I'll bet some of you are already saying, "Yee, you know, now that I think about it, that's what I'm doing out in the field." Let's think about the other salesperson that comes up. They come over and say, "How are you doing? You look like you've had a long day. I won't take much of your time, but tell me about what you're looking for in a car. Tell me what's important to you." And then they proceed to paint the picture after you've described what it is you're looking for, what it is. And so if they talk about how with a car like this, and you know, the incredible German engineering, you'll never have to worry. You'll never have any stress from it breaking down. You'll feel really good about yourself and look really good driving the car. Maybe you're going to put the top down and the air blowing your hair, and the relaxation that you get from the whole car experience. And you get home and you're fresh, relaxed, and ready to have a great time with your family, instead of pulling into the driveway, ruining the car you're driving, and not starting off on the best foot. Do you see how different that is? I'm painting a picture. I'm developing a story. I'm giving them the benefits to them, not worried about the size of the engine or the gas mileage or whatever it is. If someone's worried about gas mileage, Do I want to talk about the exact numbers so much and get into comparisons now? I want to talk about how it's going to work for them and the money it's going to save them over what they're driving today. Or maybe it's a type of fuel they can use. But look at the benefits to them and why are they looking for a high mileage car? Are they looking to save money? Then you want to talk to the benefits as far as the savings, the cost savings over the course of a year. You told me you drive 3,000 miles a year. This should save you about $342 a year just in fuel savings. If they're worried about the environment, then talk about the difference you're going to make in the environment and how green this vehicle is. So again, craft your message so that it's specific to the people, but make sure that it's laden with benefits. And benefits are what's in it for them. Benefits are those things that we're going to do to make their life easier, make them better at their job, improve their patient care, improve the outcomes, improve the satisfaction. Those are the things you want to be looking for to talk about. So as you list all those things we talked about in the prior sessions about what services you offer and what are you selling, always go back now and look down that list, and I think you'll find that most of those are features. Now I want to go back and for each one of them start developing the benefits. And remember that the benefit to one person may be different to another. What's important to the physician is not going to be the same thing that's important to the referral clerk. So craft your benefits wisely, but always talk in terms of benefits. If you're new to the position or if you're struggling with this, brainstorm with your boss, brainstorm with one of your peers, but talk about what is it that is beneficial about a particular item that we have, a particular feature, what are the benefits and who is this beneficial to? And you will be much more effective in introducing yourself and selling and receiving those referrals.
Lesson 3, what's your story?
Really the last component that we're going to talk about in creating the right impression with the people that you're interfacing with so that you can then have that opportunity to build a long-term strong relationship is thinking in terms of stories. People remember stories much more so than facts or data. So people like stories. They like to tell stories. So you want to figure out several things. Number one, what is your story? What's your agency's story? What is it about the agency that makes a difference? And then how do we tell that in the form of a story? Think about every conversation you have as having kind of an underlying theme. Something that's woven through each and every one of your conversations that's a consistency, a consistent message that reflects who you are and what's important about your hospice program. Again, kind of said earlier, if you think about other industries, I like to think about the water industry, the bottled water industry. Now, that's been one of the fastest growing segments of consumer beverages in the last decade, certainly. And a lot of water is sold for all different reasons. But if you think about why someone makes a selection, what sets it apart? Because at the end of the day, it's water. Water's water for the most part, right? So why do people select an individual water? Water is truly a commodity, okay? Hospice, if we're only talking about hospice, is a commodity. So what's really successful? And I think, one of the examples I always like to point to is Ethos Water, which is carried at Starbucks. And I'll tell you a little story about how they landed the Starbucks account. The company was founded because they wanted to find a way to bring clean water supplies to children in other parts of the world, primarily in Africa, but other parts of the world as well. We know that leading cause of childhood death is from unsanitary conditions and unsanitary drinking water. So it's a very good cause. And they were looking for ways that they could perhaps increase the amount of money coming in that would enable them to better serve those people they were trying to help with developing clean water supplies, and specifically for children. So they developed this water company, Ethos Water Company, They went in and they talked to Starbucks about it, and Starbucks said, you know what, that's exactly consistent with us. We're going to put your water in every one of our stores. So overnight they landed probably the biggest or best single account you could land, and it's because of their story. And the story is clearly portrayed on the label. You know, the tagline says helping children have clean water around the world. It talks about their mission, talks about why they are what they are. Sound familiar? Sound a little bit like hospice? So again, they're selling water, we're selling hospice. But you need to develop that story so that you can tell it in the community and have people get who you are and get attached to what that story is. Again, you know, people love stories and they remember stories. So that's on the global side. So we've got our story, overall story, who we are, why we are, all of that. What are the benefits to the community? What are some of the great things we've done? We want to have that whole story. The other place you can use stories is going to be specific things that we've done. Okay, what differences we've made in the community. Now clearly if we're talking about patients, it's not appropriate to use their names unless we have their permission and or a relationship that would be appropriate. Everybody gets hung up on HIPAA violations. Never ever violate your HIPAA rules. You have a HIPAA compliance officer, find out what they are and stay clean on that. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about stories. And I can reference one of your patients. If I'm talking to a doctor, I could reference them by name if we've got that permission. But if I can tell them something that our staff did, our hospice did, that's really very cool and made a big difference, that was really that gift, that essence of what the gift of hospice was to that family, that goes a long ways too. So you want to be in a position and make sure that in your organization you have the ability to have those stories that come back in shared with you so that you can use them specifically with the referral partners that sent us that patient, but also perhaps generically across other patients. So be prepared to be able to tell specific stories that illustrate what it is you're selling, and then you're converting now not just a benefit to them, but giving them a story that they can get their arms around and they'll remember because it was a story. So remember, develop your story, know what your agency story is, and constantly be looking for those individual stories you can tell when you're out in the community. You need to collect them, you need to have them, and you need to use them. Now, one caveat to that is, you know, sometimes we overdo it, and we've seen reps that overdo the stories, and at some point you lose the customer, you lose their attention. So pick and choose where you use them, and use succinct versions of the stories, and make sure they're appropriate. If you're telling someone a story and they're clearly not interested, then cut it short because it's not resonating. You can tell from body language and other activities whether the story you're telling is resonating with your audience or not. So make sure it resonates, make sure it's appropriate, and don't go down too many alleys and try and tell too many stories and get off on a bunch of stories and never achieve your purpose for being there, which was for getting them to see how to use our hospice services for a specific patient or type of patient. So as you're creating these stories, you know, keep that in mind. Another caveat I would say is that sometimes, and many of you may have gotten into this role because of a personal experience with hospice, be real careful how you use that. Somehow that does not always resonate, and you know, going around and telling people that, you know, I'm a community liaison for this hospice program because of the experience I had with my grandmother, and then proceed to tell them all about your grandmother and that experience. For whatever reason, it doesn't necessarily resonate. So if you're going to use a personal experience with hospice, be real careful about how you use it and when you use it. And again, keep it short and make sure that it speaks to that story you're weaving about your hospice program, the story that in each one of those sales calls that make that long building of the relationship, that we're building a consistent basis for who we are, so they just know, they get what it is that makes us a great program.
Lesson 4, the role play.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Pam. I work with some physicians to help them manage their patients' uncontrolled pain, and I just wondered, is that something that sounds like you could use it for some of the other docs?
Maybe. I'm not really sure.
Okay, so what was missing from her introduction? Remember the key elements we went over? Identifying who you are, giving your full name, who you represent, and the problem you can solve and/or the solution for that problem. We talked about that it's important to explain what the benefit is of talking with you. So what was missing from this first role play? Well, the most obvious thing missing was her full name, who she worked for, and what her title or function is. But what else was she missing? She did actually mention a problem, which was helping to manage uncontrolled pain, and she only briefly mentioned that she helped with that problem. But she said it in such a limp, unconfident way that it didn't even sound like a problem or a solution presentation. This lack of confidence in turn led to the person she was speaking to be slightly confused and also have little confidence in the salesperson who was talking to them. Let's listen to another version.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Pam from the hospice agency.
Sure.
And I'm a personal helper, and I help doctors kind of help their patients to manage uncontrollable pain, and if they've got a lot of stress and things like that. Does that sound like something that might work for you and some of the other docs?
Maybe. I'm not really sure.
This time, Pam included a title and label portion to her introduction, but again she was missing her full name. And the label she gave herself, a personal helper, was acceptable, but at the end of the day doesn't really tell the person the benefit to them. Why she's there, why they should talk to her further. She did include a problem-solution portion to her introduction, but she used such vague language like kinda and maybe. Words like that are always going to be out of any introduction. Remember, we want to always sell from a position of strength. We have something valuable to share with the people we call on. We are helping them be better at their job and making their life easier, after all. So there's no need to apologize or shy away from selling our agency and the services it can provide them and the community. Again, this soft language ended up getting a soft response from the person she was talking to. Let's listen to one more.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Pam Pister with ABC Hospice Agency, and I'm your personal physician coordinator. I work with physicians to help them manage their patients' uncontrollable pain, to reduce the stress and the number of phone calls that they receive. Does that sound like something that would be helpful for your practice?
Absolutely.
So, what did we like? Well, obviously, she stated her full name, gave her title, and she stated a very clear problem and solution. She even used visual words to paint a word picture when she talked about reducing the number of phone calls, which is definitely a benefit with talking to the physicians or their offices. She finished with a clear question. Does that sound like something that would be helpful for your practice? Which begot a solid and confident answer from the person she was speaking to. That's the end of the role plays for this model on introductions. I hope you've learned how to perform a successful introduction, and we also hope you learned what not to do when it comes to introducing yourself. So remember, plan your introduction, practice your introduction, and you'll do just fine.
Let's talk about what you've just learned. When introducing yourself, your label and agency are important, but the most effective introductions also incorporate a problem and a solution. The problem and solution need to be specific to the individual you're calling on. Remember to develop introductions for the various types of referral partners you'll be calling on and practice. First impressions are also very important when making introductions. Remember to always look and behave like a professional. You will often be the first person from your agency that the referral partner meets, so the impression you make will be the impression they have of your agency. Now that you've got your introductions tool packed carefully away into your hospice sales toolbox, it's time to bring in the sledgehammer, qualifying. Qualifying can make or break a good hospice sales rep because it is the best tool you have for identifying the person who calls in the referrals in each account. It's also the best tool for getting past gatekeepers and zeroing in on the potential for referrals. Ready to learn more about qualifying? Put in the next CD.